Tropes.
Balrogs Blastbeats with the dab. Another week. I almost introduced my radio show, but I realized this is not my radio show. This is a podcast. This is the nerdiest podcast that ever there was. The coolest uncool. I am one of your hosts, Josh Redbeard.
I'm Margy.
And I'm Grant. And as always, you know, Josh accidentally introduces us as what podcast? What radio is it? It's,
Short,
I was,
fast, loud.
I was about to call it.
The one that
I was
he
about to call it the
famously
rush
does.
hour.
Rush. That's
Oh,
not
no,
a
I
show.
don't.
The talk back rush hour with Josh
I
Redbeard.
don't play metalcore. I don't get on short, fast, loud. I'm not cool enough.
Short Fast Loud isn't even metalcore.
I'm not cool enough. No, so I gotta go for the racket. But yeah, as every week we do.
Shut
Sorry, Josh.
It's fine. It's fine.
I mean, like, I'll send you the music if you want, but
I always want, but I can't play.
yeah, exactly. See, I'm right. I didn't even need to ask. Now I'm shot down. Now
it's
I look
Anthony
like an idiot.
Albanese's fault that we don't get metalcore on
Yes,
Josh's
he's-
program.
Those leftists, oh, them and their psychedelic rock.
We're off to a kicking start with
Yeah,
this
yeah.
podcast.
Anyway,
We are
nerdiest
with the
thing.
program.
If you've been here before, if you heard us talk about anything, usually we do a nerdy thing. Today I'm making fun of ABC Radio.
Fair.
But well, my nerdiest thing this week actually has something to do with Pimp My Ride. It's a bit of a throwback. So I was just like, because my partner and I, we always just like at the end of the night, we just like watch random stuff on YouTube.
Yeah,
And this
That's the whole point of a relationship, I think.
this video queued up, and it was just this random guy who had like he usually like he's called Tavarish, and he restores cars on YouTube and just does like montages and stuff. He usually does like Lamborghinis and Ferraris and like, you know, super high end cars that have been like in car crashes, and he like fully restores them to like proper and running. But we just like it just randomly switched to this video of him restoring this abandoned Pit My Ride minivan that's half pink, half purple. It's got like
Dope.
it's got like a jewelry station that you make your own jewelry station with like those colored like blue and pink like kind of like opaque beads that you put on. It's got that in the back. It's got, you know, 20-inch CRT monitors that weigh 400 kilos. It's got like it's got a full-on like one of those like Fast and the Furious like fiberglass cast like speaker back things, like if you're playing like Need for Speed Underground 2, and you like it's got everything. So he gets this car for $850. It smells like something's died inside.
Something probably did die in there.
Yeah, it's been derelict in Boston for 4 years in a car park. It's full of mold. He gets it. It turns out there's actually not really that much wrong with it. Like at the start of the video, he thinks, you know, everything's kind of not working. Then he finds out there's an auxiliary battery in the back, like a spare battery in the back to power all that stuff. And he goes, wait, somehow, like this video is from 2019, by the way. This car was fixed up in 2004 on Pimp My Ride.
Oh my God.
So 19 years later, he restores the car, you know, buffs the paint, everything works.
That's
And
so
it's
good.
like, because like when you think of Pit My Ride, everyone goes, oh yeah, you know, they fixed the outside, but the engine and all that's usually all busted, blah, blah, blah. But it actually turns out half the time they just buy a new car that looks almost identical, so they don't have to deal
Yeah, as if you
with like fixing like all the mechanical side of it. But yeah, it turns out
Amazing.
after like the craftsmanship is actually good. Like the paint still looks really well done. All the stuff inside, you know, even like the wiring and stuff is still held up, you know, nearly 20 odd years later. Like my car is from 2010 and it's still falling apart.
I don't even
This
own
car-
a car, so
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how this car can survive. And then before like we came on here today, I was like, oh, you know, I'll rewatch some of the video, just like, you know, like refresh myself before I talk about it. And then it turns out he's bought it again as of August 12th, 2022. Because he gave it away as like a Christmas like gift to like one of his followers or something like that after he'd fully restored the car. and then it was like sold to a museum, and then it was derelict in a barn for another 4 years, and he's gotten it back again, and he's restoring it for a second time. He's got it back. All the batteries are dead. He's like back at square one.
Did he like lose his virginity in this car or something? What's so
I don't
special
know.
about it?
I think because I think it went viral, got him like 20 million views. So I think he's just like, oh well, why not try it again? But I just can't believe that. Like on my way to like refresh myself on what happened in that video, I've somehow like just figured out that he's bought the car again.
I've always wondered what happens to those cars afterwards, because like surely
drive them around.
Yeah, but some people might, like, I think like for me anyway, like I would hate to drive a car like that. I'd be so embarrassed. I'd be like, nah, I don't want this car. I want nothing to do with this car. I was like, yeah, do people sell them? Like, what happens to them? So it's like I don't care about where are they now for like people. I couldn't give less of a shit about that. But like, where are they now for cars from Pimp My Ride? I would watch the shit out of that show.
Okay, that's a fucking web series that we need to make. Like, where are they now? Like Pimp My Ride and like makeover shows, but like one of the really like D-grade makeover shows. And it's like
where we all go in there, but we don't know anything about cars. So we're like, yeah, we'll re-pimp your ride, and it's just like all scratched, like wrong buffer on there or something.
I put a dead possum in it. I figured that would make it more car-like. I don't know. That just seemed like the right thing to do.
Yeah, it just seemed like it belonged there, you know.
Well, I mean, I do wonder how much time like they always kind of had and like what the quality was, because like I know for that TV show like The Block, where they like restore old houses, because of the time pressure, apparently the craftsmanship's like real shit, because the people like have to move on to the next thing too fast, and so it's like all the stuff looks really nice for camera but is actually garbage. And so I've always been curious what it was like for the Pimp My Ride cars.
Can you actually buy the houses off The Block?
I think they auction them.
They auction them at the end.
To be honest, like even like when like my partner and I when we were looking at houses a couple of years ago, like even the builders these days are shit. Like I walk around and like you just like all these like new houses that have just been thrown up, especially like those big developments. They're just like slapped together, and everything's like there's like cupboard doors that are on angles and stuff. Like, come on, dude! Like that's just a screw.
Oh my god!
That's
okay,
easy.
speaking of house integrity, I've got to go let my cat in because she's gotten herself caught in my fly screen and she's trying to chill her way out.
Oh, bless you very, very much, Bowie. That's very, very funny.
But I couldn't believe like how high quality, like, because all the stuff in there, like they put electric, like, cause it's a minivan, and they've like removed the door handle, so it's got like an electric door built in, which is just not standard because it's like a '99 Chrysler thingamajig. I can't remember what it was called. It's a van.
Phenomenal.
But how about you, Margy? What's the nerdiest thing you've done this week?
Honestly, I'm still stressing out about the last episode and my answer about what music I could listen to, because it's been really impacting me, like the one genre. And I was like, look, maybe post-hardcore would be a safer description, because Scrams fits into post-hardcore, and Converge have been described as post-hardcore because they are in a way.
I mean, they technically
early metalcore was post-hardcore, so.
Or was early metalcore just melodic death metal because they're all just trying to be at the gates?
I mean, everything melodic death metal?
Yeah.
Exactly. So
that's how big your neck
I
is.
Googled it. I was like, could you describe Converge as post-hardcore? I went on forums, and yes, you can. So I was like, well, I need something that covers Converge, and I have a lot of dispute tattoo, so like, feel bad if I didn't have my homies in there.
If you want, I can go and start a forum on Reddit. It just says that I think Cattle Decapitation is metalcore, and then you can put it under. Oh, sorry, post-hardcore, and then you can technically put it under there.
Exactly. Bowie disagrees. But
as a somewhat respected professional, quote unquote professional within that realm of music, I'm willing to accept your answer, Margy. If that means anything to you,
I have pled my case. You could tell I've thought about it.
Yeah, I could probably agree that Converge could be considered post-hardcore because they did come out of that sort of time.
Mm.
Yeah, interesting.
And post-hardcore still in. I mean, it was this New City of Caterpillar album that got me really thinking about it. And so I was like listening to the New City of Caterpillar, thinking about it, and like, Okay, I think I found a workaround here.
So here's the hole, though. Do you only get the post-hardcore albums of The Converge? Like, can you just not listen to Jane Doe?
Ooh, because
No,
yeah,
Because that's not post-hardcore.
Yep, no, it is.
That is
according to the
not
internet, it
post-hardcore.
is. I'll die on this hill.
so yeah, I'd probably consider You Found Me and Jane Doe the closest they have to post-hardcore, because their early stuff was definitely more like grindy, and their more later stuff
Even
has gone
Jane
more
Doe's
prog.
pretty grindy.
Yeah, but
that's
compared
true.
to like Petitioning an Empty Sky and stuff, like Petitioning an Empty
Yes,
Sky was
yeah.
very grindy.
and
What was
their
the split? The
latest
Poacher
album
Diaries.
is
The
like,
latest album's got more prog, almost.
All We Love, We Leave Behind is like it's pretty post-hardcore-y.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
going.
I'd say that middle gap is about as close as like in the umbrella of post hardcore. It's like right on the very edge, like up to even so not Axe to Fall. What's the name of that album? Dark Horse. No, Axe to Fall is the album. Dark
Axe
Horse.
to Falls. I was like, no, Dark Horse is the opening track of Axe to Fall.
Dark Horse is the track. I'd say like between like You Fail Me and Axe to Fall, kind of. I'll
allow it.
Kind of. I'm going to allow it because I came up with the question and I'm the judge of.
That's a huge weight off my shoulders. Honestly, I've been really stressed about that.
We should stop talking about it, because the longer we talk about it, the less post-hardcore they become. So we'll just leave it now before they're not post-hardcore anymore.
I won't mention Meshuggah. I'm wearing a Meshuggah shirt. There's no argument there for them being post-hardcore.
And not post-hardcore in the slightest.
Their first album is basically Metallica, though.
True.
Well, let's not go there.
In a weird
Josh,
way.
how have you been nerding it up this week?
Well, I've been nerding out in a way that harkens back to our very, very first show and the very first.
I was like, we haven't done any live shows.
So this week I've been diving really deep into Fallout 4 and like Grant's inspiration, a whole bunch of the modding community. I've downloaded a whole bunch of mods.
Nice.
And I'm having some fun with Fallout 4 and
playing
the game again. And
I have been seeing you toiling away like on Discord. I've just been seeing you playing Fallout 4. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. So in the last week, I probably smashed out about 20 hours of Fallout 4, and it did remind me, but it also made me solidify my opinion on it, because in our first episode you two were very concerned about the fact that I said that the Fallout universe would be the best universe to wake up in, and I don't think I really explained myself properly, but I thought more about it afterwards. And I think the addendum to that is why I still believe that my favorite universe would be to wake up in would be Fallout, is because every bar like a small amount, like bar maybe like the Pokemon universe and stuff like that, every universe that's created has something inherently very, very wrong with it. Like when we create these universes, where it's the Warhammer universe, the fucking the Mario universe, whatever, there is chaos and there is discord. So wherever you're going to go, there's going to be chaos, there's going to be danger, like whatever. I mean,
that's how we get antagonists, and that's how we get plot lines.
But I also like how you specifically put aside the slave chicken fighting simulator as the one thing that's okay. Like that's what Pokemon is.
The world of Pokemon. There is obviously slavery and all that kind of bullshit inside of Pokemon, animal abuse and whatnot. But like
it's the entirety of the world of Pokemon.
The world that exists.
They consent to it. I googled it. It said they like it.
Yeah, they love it.
They would. That's Team Rocket.
But the world that exists for Pokemon is quite a wholesome world. Team Rocket is being the most evil thing in the world. So I was going to say, like, if I'm going to have a chaotic world to live in, you may as well go all out. So I stand by, after playing 20 hours of Fallout 4 again, I stand by my initial statement that if I could wake up tomorrow in any universe, I'd wake up in the Fallout universe, because I am mentally unhinged.
Do you get to unlock perks though?
What are your mods that you're using?
I mean, I'm doing nothing crazy. There's there's mods that increase the building capacity of your townships and stuff like that. There's one that changes all the storm mechanics. The storms are a lot more real. Like the graphics in the storms are a lot more sick. True Storms is sick.
Yep. That's fucking nerdy. I love it.
Yeah, 100%. I like.
This meteorological event isn't accurate enough.
Yeah, but it's it's just all like cool, interesting things. Like I need to download. You can't get some of the bigger ones until I haven't got like the add-ons yet. So I haven't got like Nuka Town and Automaton and was it Dark Sea or Deep Sea? Yeah. So there's some mods that only work if you have those three add-ons. And
Can
I
you
don't have
like
those
gift
yet.
them? Because I have them, but
I don't know.
You're playing on computer. You probably can't like just
Yeah.
gift them.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's been really, really fun, and there's some really interesting mods out there. There's some weird and wonderful mods out there. Yeah, I think I've downloaded the cheat mod, but I haven't used like the cheat console yet. So I think I'm gonna play this one through normally and then go back in and just have some fun with like all the cheats and just see what I can do with that. But so the thing that I realized about Fallout as well is like I've played this multiple times and I realized like I have won as the Railroad and I've won as the Institute, but I still haven't won as the Brotherhood of Steel, and I don't want to.
They're just so unlikable in Fallout
They
4.
they really are, and I think it's because I also like Elder Maxon's jacket, and so every time I get close to him, I just end up shooting him in the head so I can steal his jacket.
Yeah, well now you got the cheat terminal, so you don't even need to. You just spawn it.
Nah, I want to shoot him in the head anyway because he pisses me off. But yeah, so I've been nerding back out into Fallout 4 all this week, and it has made me reaffirm my values that yes, I do want to wake up in the Fallout universe.
See, now we're just going to get listeners upset that you're talking about wanting to be in the Fallout universe, but you're not talking about Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah, it's because I'm not playing Fallout New Vegas. I got to play Fallout New Vegas. I'll go back again. So after 4, I'll play New Vegas, and then I'll play Fallout 3, and then I'll start the whole thing again because there's all mods for those ones as well in Vortex.
Yes,
I've got to go through. So
many.
yeah. So that'll be my next challenge. But yeah, that's the nerdiest thing that I've been doing this week. But it is time to move into the medium beat for this week. Medium beat, it's been a while since we've done a battle report on what games we've been playing, what our characters are up to in Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, or kind of what nerdy things we've been doing. So I thought it was a good time to sort of revisit that and see where we're at. So maybe Margy, we'll start with you. What's your current battle report? What do we need to know about what's going on in your nerdy world?
Well, there's two things. One, had my first D&D session in ages last night. Was great. Yeah. Tell you some more deets in a minute. And also, I am up to the last book in the Wheel of Time series, book 14. I just finished like the 200 and something page chapter that is called The Last Battle. So that is a
one
battle
chapter.
report.
That's insane.
Brandon Sanderson was like, I could break this up into heaps of chapters, or I could just, let's just make it fucking Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, it was Brandon Sanderson, yeah. I don't know what RJ wanted, but no, D&D was great. My druid still fucking slaps. Play a Circle of the Moon druid if you want to be hella OP. Especially at lower levels, because like we're only level 5 or something, my group at the moment. And yeah, like we were in a town, got caught in a booby trap. A half-orc who I've been flirting with showed up because I realized I'm pretty shit at everything except for charisma. So I just flirt with everyone to get out of stuff. Had a nice sort of walk in the snow with him because I was booby trapped. I was like, I could just spider climb out of here. And the dungeon master was like, I'm metagaming right now. Go through that door with the ogre. And I was like, oh, because I have like a magic book that I keep forgetting about with riddles that I need to solve. But I keep forgetting because ADHD. Anyway, there was adventuring. Our wizard got a sick hat. He got it made for himself. It's like a metal bucket, one of those like metal bucket hats. And then it's got his wizard hat attached to it on top. So it's like a wizard war helmet. So it's
like Kung Lao.
Yeah. And then we had a nice little orc battle, which we hadn't fought any orcs for a while. I just did battlefield control spells and then turned into a bear and killed like 7 things. And our poor elf ranger was like, how many kills did Margy get just then? And I was like, I only speak in bear noises when I turn into a bear, just to be really annoying. And everyone's like, just shut up. And then the Wheel of Time series, this will be attempted with no spoilers. I've just seen obliteration with the 1 power, so just bodies being ripped apart. It's pretty metal, and then just like ripping people's heads off and shit like that. Then there's a kind of Magna Carta moment, which is interesting. The fate of a nomadic warrior society hangs in the balance. Hunting people in their dreams has been happening. Division within magical operations, including mind control. There's multiple battlefronts, which have now changed. People dying everywhere. The worst hero battle that I've ever seen. It's
In what way? Like the worst is
Okay.
it sucked, or
it's the Dragon Reborn. The ultimate purpose of the series is the Dragon Reborn is the one who will defeat the Dark One again. So he's gone into the Dark One's prison, and then he faces another super wizard. And instead of super wizarding at each other, they chose to have a sword fight. And then and then what happens from there just gets dumber, and it's just like they end up both getting frozen somehow, and they're having like a thought battle. And it's like,
so it's just turned into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
yeah. And there's crystallization. There's lots of face tats, which are shamed quite a lot, but they're very cool. Bit of betrayal. Some very nice looking eye patches involving rubies, which we do like. And then a Doomseer, which I think is the coolest fucking title you can have, the Imperial Doomseer.
Yeah.
But
I'm just waiting for like just so like the Doom 2016 soundtrack just starts playing in the background.
Honestly, I read the
Slayer.
last battle chapter last night and was up till like 2 a.m. because I just couldn't stop. I was like, and then what? Oh my god, they're dead. Oh my god, they're dead. Oh god, and it was like a lot of good characters may not die. Some annoying characters die, which is quite nice. I listened to the Dragon Reread, which is a really good podcast, and one of the hosts knows a lot about like historical battle techniques, and it's great because he'll like spout some knowledge. You'd be like, oh yeah, what they're doing here is, you know, like related to this, but they also rip on a character that I hate, so it's really nice. Yeah. Grant, you have any battle reports to check in with?
Well, it's like I guess since we last talked about D&D, I basically single-handedly killed a Hydra, which was exciting.
Sick. Who are you playing as?
There's a Berserker half-orc. What's it called?
That's a pretty good way to
Barbarian.
kill a Hydra.
But also because we moved campaigns, right? So we were originally with one DM, and we kind of just like he couldn't look after us anymore, so we had to go to a different DM. But we like kept our characters and just kind of like rolled it across. But like I had already gotten a +2 greatsword at level 5. Which is like pretty overpowered. So
and Berserkers go hella OP when they're berserking.
Well, because I can take 3 attacks in one turn, and I can savage attack, so I can attack with advantage. So basically, within the 10 turns of my rage, which we didn't get that far, but yeah, I dealt personally myself about 156 damage to the Hydra over 4 turns.
That's
amazing.
So good.
And then like everyone else like did about like 16, 18. But also I was pinned by the Hydra, and it was to the point where he had I think 3 of the heads had me pinned. So like a leg and an arm and an arm. But because it's all piercing damage, as being a barbarian, when I'm raging, I take half damage from piercing damage. So I'm still like fully like locked down. He's got like mud people fighting me because he knows like if I don't do something, I'm just going to destroy that Hydra. So he like fully like I'm grappled and all that, but because I'm grappled, I can still attack, and because I got my savage attack, like I'm not even attacking disadvantage. I'm just like on the ground, still attacking with advantage. Like I just cannot stop you. And everyone else is like, you know, like shooting fireballs, like playing like magic sword or whatever it is, like the floating sword. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I know the one. I have a spell scroll.
Magical weapon. And it's like, yeah, just doing like little bits of damage. I'm like, don't worry, guys, I got it.
I got him. Don't worry. Yeah.
But luckily, we had to go into this Hydra's den so we could get save some children's lives, take them back to the town. That was cool. So we met this guy who builds boats, and what we've been trying to do for the last little while that the DM was originally annoyed about, but he's fully on board now, is trying to make a floating barge where we could start a fight club. And now we've met the boat maker, and we saved his kid, so he's like, yeah, look, I'll make the boat for you. And we've already got the smith back on board at the major town, so like he's made the schematics. We're gonna give the schematics to the shipbuilder. He's gonna build us a barge. We're gonna start a fight club, and we're just gonna put it on the river in between the two cities because it's like international waters, so we don't have to pay any taxes.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. And
honestly,
when we're questing, we're just going to let the Fight Club make its own money.
That's
Love
a really great idea. You've got a solid income.
Yeah, and when I come back to town, I'm the attraction because I'm like, well, whoever can beat me, let's go. I'll fist fight you all.
Oh, hell yeah. And I feel like you'll get lots of good adventure offers from having a Fight Club. You're going to attract the kind of people, who like...
Have some good quests.
I mean, or maybe you'll just like get like a lot of middle-aged men who are like bored in their suburban family life who have some rage to get off their chest. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll bash them all.
Gotta bash them all.
Yeah. How about you, Josh? I guess you already talked about your Fallout 4, but I guess that wasn't even your battle. Yeah, that wasn't even your battle report. What else have you been up to?
Well, I finally went to Commander Night at Maze with Jared because I haven't been to Commander Night for probably 2 months or something like that.
That's Thursdays, isn't it?
Yeah, Thursday nights at Maze and Fitzroy. Shout out to Maze because they're sick. So me and Jared went down and I bought like the 3 new decks that I'd made plus the 2 brand new Commander decks from Magic the Gatherings. I mean, now they're not the brand new Commander decks because now it's the Warhammer ones, but the Commander decks from Dominaria United. And so I thought,
much product fatigue.
Right,
I just can't keep up.
But I was like, well, fuck it. I'll give these a go. So the first deck I played was the Jared Carthalion deck, which is a 5 mana. It's called Painbow. It has like a big
5 mana. Fuck it. Oh.
Yeah, 5 mana commander
5
and like
color,
one,
isn't it?
Yeah, 5 color, 5 mana for the commander. And then in my opening hand, I drew a 10 mana 10/10 Primeval Spawn, which is 5 colorless, and then Wooburg. And I was like, fuck it. I want to see how good this deck is. I'm going to keep a 10 mana 10/10 in my opening hand, which, like, dear listener, if you have never played Magic the Gathering, never keep a 10 mana 10. I don't care if the rest of your hand is mana. Never keep a 10 mana 10/10 in your opening hand. Stupid. Especially because Primeval Spawn, like this card, they've made it so difficult to like, there's no way to cheat it out. Because basically it says, if Primeval Spawn would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast or no mana was spent to cast it, exile it instead. Because it's a 10 mana 10/10 with Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink, and says when it leaves the battlefield, exile the top 10 cards of your library. You may cast any number of spells with total mana cost 10 or less from among them without paying their mana cost.
Oh.
So I start playing this deck. I cast the 10 mana 10/10 by turn 6. Turn 6, I had this out on the board, and then the next card I drew was a fucking 2 mana bounce spell. So I just bounced it back to my hand, and then played the 10 mana worth of cards, and then played it again. I smashed everyone on the table with this, like, fucking.
So how did you get away with playing that in the first place? Like, why did was there, because you played nothing else, obviously. You must have just played lands and no other creatures, and it was like, oh, the deck doesn't work. Surely that's the way you get away.
This deck sucks.
No, I had my commander out by that stage. Like, I had a whole bunch of shit out by that stage. I just managed to get some really good ramp and get into it pretty fucking quickly. And because Jared's like plus ability puts a 3/3 with trample onto the board, and so it's like, so you've got some defender bodies and shit.
Is it like a planeswalker commander?
Yeah, it's a Planeswalker commander for both decks. And then so I won with that, beat the whole table. I was like, well, fuck it, I'll play Dihada instead. And I came this close to winning with Dihada as well. So like both the decks are really, really OP. And I think a lot of people have been complaining about power creep, especially within the commander products in Wizards lately. But I was thinking about it and I realized apart from like the odd one, most of the commander decks have always been pretty powerful. Like, you go back to AC, the Brood Tyrant from a couple of years ago. That deck by itself is still powerful. You go back to Edgar Markov from 2016.
Yeah, that's busted.
That was the same year. So that was the same deck as the Dragon. Like there is so many powerful like pre-con commander decks. There's some shitty ones out there, but for the most part, I don't think there's been that much of a power creep. Because that Eddie deck is still powerful, and that's now 7 years old.
I think the issue is people are upset because they spent dumb money on making their own deck, and some dude spends $30 on some pre-made shit and comes and fucking gives them a wedgie, and then they're all upset about it.
Yeah. Speaking of giving people wedgies.
But yeah, so I mean, we only, because the second game went for so fucking long as well. We only had time for like one more game, and so it didn't really get to test.
You had time for like one game in the first place. Commander goes so long.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't get any infinite combos on you.
Yeah, no, I cannot say that I did. No, sorry. No, there was an infinite combo that came out. So I played D Harder twice because I think someone won like infinite on like turn 3 with D Harder. And so we're like, we're just going to pretend that didn't happen, move on with our lives.
It was an accident. I didn't notice
yeah,
it was in the deck.
No, I just completely blanked it. That wasn't me. I'm pretty sure it was fucking Jared as always.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah. So no, it was fun. It was really, really fun. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with those commander decks, and I have regrets about not pre-ordering the Warhammer ones. Like I kept on telling myself I was going to do because now they've gone up by like $100 because the demand is so fucking high. Yeah, they were pre-ordering at like $200 each. Now they're pre-ordering at $300 each. So that sucks. But
I need that money to pay for my next session of group therapy sessions. If you want to pay for my mental health instead.
Exactly.
Oh,
but
jeez.
Yeah, so that's my battle report. Is that the Dominaria commander decks are really fucking fun to play, like really, really fun to play. So I'll keep them around for a little bit, but I'll end up breaking them and building 50 odd decks out of them eventually. But yes, it is time though that we got to move into the main topic of the night because
speaking of wedgies, maybe that's a better segue now.
Speaking of wedgies, and this one came to me the other day while I was watching. It was in a moment of nostalgia when I was watching one of my favorite childhood films. So I was watching the film The
Sound
Faculty.
of Music.
Yeah, the Sound of Music. Sound of Music is fucking phenomenal. But have either of you seen The Faculty?
I've never even heard of it. Is that School of Rock? Is that the original School of Rock?
No. Now, so The Faculty has it's got Josh Hartnett, it's got Elijah Wood, it's got
Elijah Wood,
someone else in it. It's got the dude that played T-1000 in it as well. But it's sort of like another version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Basically,
I have seen that. Yes, actually, I have seen that.
Right? From like 98.
The water creature.
Yeah, the water creature thing.
No, that's Alex Mack, the TV show, which you can turn into water.
Had the biggest crush on Alex Mack, but let's not. That's for another day. We'll do a whole episode about like our childhood crushes.
We'll creep next week.
Yeah, but The Faculty is a phenomenal film. It's really, really well done, and yeah, it's just all kind of about this like aliens that come and take over the small town, and the teens have to fight the aliens, and it's sick. But the very ending of it, so like after there's like the fucking all the shit happens and they save the day. The nerd character becomes the hero, but becomes like a real kind of arrogant dick. And the emo girl, the girl that was wearing all black and had the dark black eyeliner the whole time, she comes out of her shell and now she's wearing purple and she doesn't have the eyeliner anymore. And so it's this whole character arc about, nerds, you can become cool and you can be an asshole. And the only way that emo girls become you become normal and you'll be happy. Yeah. And it just that last scene just kind of like upset me quite a bit that these were the kind of things that were being told. And so I kind of wanted for us to kind of go into the idea of looking at representation throughout time in terms of our subcultures, in terms of nerds, in terms of metalheads or emos or whatever it is. And why they were presented in that way and how things are changing. And so, Margy, we trust you when it comes to all things science. And we know that you've gone...
my captain.
You've gone deep into the psychology in this one. I'm sure of it. I don't even need you to tell me you have. And so would you like to start us off by telling what is the psychology behind using these kinds of stereotypes?
Okay, so I thought I'd give a bit of a context to like heavy metal being the other first, because like heavy metals since being around, and there was the whole being branded as Satanists and stuff, and Ozzy Osbourne was really helping by like eating bats and shit.
Smallest horns, tiny horns.
The tiniest horns. And then the satanic panic happened in the late 80s and early 90s with over 12,000 unsubstantiated cases of satanic ritual abuse. That's a whole other one about false memories, which is fucked. And it's not just the metalheads, even the huge surge against Dungeons and Dragons, which you kind of see in the latest season of Stranger Things, where so BADD, BADD, which was Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, were an advocacy group. They were legit. They were an advocacy group.
They had Oprah.
Yeah, right. Dedicated to moderating role-playing games like D&D. The founder, Patricia Pulling, it's really sad, believed that her son's suicide was a result of him playing D&D. And we know that like Suicide is a lot more complicated than that. But
Mm.
anyway, so that's a whole thing. So, but there are two perspectives in conceptualizing stereotypes in social psychology. So there's one perspective. It's that how we, like, a stereotype is represented in the mind of the individual person. And then there's also stereotypes as being part of a social fabric of society shared by people within that culture. So, and often there's overlap between the two that obviously kind of feed into it. The people being stereotyped will have their own views about how they're being stereotyped by society. So stereotypeception. So when you're being stereotyped, you have you have a stereotype in your mind about how you're being stereotyped. So it goes back and forth a lot. And when stereotypes are shared within a society, like through pop culture, their consequences become much more notable, and they infect entire groups of people in a common way as a result. So how stereotypes form? They can be attributed to some theoretical concepts, two of them being semantic memory and automatic activation. So over time, people develop beliefs about the characteristics of social groups in their environment, like obviously have to be a large enough social group to be identified. And this knowledge influences their responses towards subsequently encountered individuals of these groups. And this is subject to biases due to like how we process information. It's what humans do, where we characterize and categorize our experiences to make generalizations when we experience something novel. So so you see something that looks like a table, and you know what a table is. So you go, all right, this thing looks like a table. And because you're seeing its features and you're assigning it to a group, and then you're making assumptions about it. Like, I could put things on it and it'll be a flat, stable surface, right? I could play Magic on there.
I was thinking more Lou Reed and Metallica, I Am the Table. But yes, continue.
So that's known as automatic processing, which is really rapid and it's really inflexible, and but you can't really control it. It just kind of happens. It's how we've survived as humans. Like, oh, that looks like a lion coming to eat me. I'm just going to yeet. I'm not going to take, like, you don't need to think about that, right? Because conscious processing requires attention resources. So to like really think about someone deeply and to process and assess them requires a bit more thinking, obviously. And then semantic memory is like association. So it's where associated concepts have stronger links. So like the word doctor and nurse have a stronger relation than like doctor and tree. I don't know, maybe not for dogs. I'm not sure. But people, it's based on how you experience stuff, which sets up your semantic memory. But really interestingly, your semantic memory will be really similar to everyone else's semantic memory. Like, we all structure it the same way. And like weakly associated concepts can be activated by spreading through the thematic association. So it evolves and over time. So that means that like if pop culture is feeding you stereotypes, this will influence your perception of the group, increasing your exposure to generalized stereotypes and categories, and then perpetuating the stereotype. So the more that pop culture portrays nerds as math-loving, glasses-wearing geeks, the more that you will see them as that because of these reasons. And it also stereotypes also influence what information is sought out due to cognitive bias. It's like, you know, when you associate a nerd with maths and you see a really nerdy person doing maths, you're like, oh, of course they're doing maths. They love maths. Or you see a metalhead listening to metal, you're like, oh, of course they're listening to metal. They love metal. Like, it's got to be in a Cartman voice. And there's other factors like self-fulfilling prophecies and illusory correlation. So even if you see a metalhead cuddling a duckling, you're more likely to remember the metalhead that you saw punching a grandma than you are to remember a metalhead cuddling a duckling. Even though I've never seen a grandma punch a metalhead. No, I think I've seen that. Never seen a metalhead punch a grandma, but I've seen a metalhead cuddling a duckling.
I've definitely seen a metalhead cuddling a duckling. So yeah, I'm going to agree.
Yeah, I have as well, right? So and the social groups we belong to help form our identities, and we're often biased against people outside our own social group. But there's like stereotyping informs prejudice and stuff, and so there's obviously a lot of research into this, but that's kind of your basics. It's learning these associations and then going from there, like and then they kind of get reinforced by what we see and what we experience, and obviously a lot of what we see comes from pop culture. So the more that you see biased stereotypes, the more that you're gotta believe them. And I've got some really good paper quotes as well, which you guys are gonna love.
I'm all for a paper quote. I'm all for a paper quote.
Yeah.
But I think we see a lot of that throughout, especially throughout television. I mean, yeah, because the thing that kind of came to mind first for me was obviously like the popularity of a television show like The Big Bang Theory, which like I have vehemently like hated since the very, very beginning. Like I cannot fucking stand the show on every single level because I think
they took my culture.
Yeah. It's not even that they
just glanced up as he said it.
Annoying.
But it's not so much the way they took the culture, it's the way they presented the culture. Like, because I'm a big fan of like the IT crowd and the way like that presents nerds in a very fantastical way, in the same way as The Big Bang Theory.
Oh my god, the countdown bar that they go to.
The countdown bar is
so bad.
Absolutely phenomenal.
That looks so fun.
But I think the difference between say like the IT crowd and The Big Bang Theory is the IT crowd was laughing with the nerds, whereas to me it always felt like The Big Bang Theory was laughing at the nerds. And I feel like that was probably the most important distinction, is that where they put the weight of certain jokes or they put the weight of certain stereotypes is really evident in those two shows. But like, you know, I
also found it quite sexist in a weird way.
It is highly sexist. But yeah, I think someone made the argument to me of just kind of like, oh, but that's British humor versus American humor. And I was like, yeah, but 2 points to that is, one, as Australians, I feel like we have a solid mix of both. So I feel like we're able to kind of join the two together and kind of see where it's different. But then I thought like I found actually a really, really good think piece on 2 American examples that actually break it down really, really well. And it breaks it down to the point of characters. Some dude wrote like a whole blog about I haven't seen Community in so long, but I can't remember if it's Abed or Abed. It's Abed. Yeah, it's Abed. Yeah. But yeah, the character of Abed in Community versus the character of Sheldon in Big Bang Theory, and looking at the differences between the two, where it's like they are basically identical in terms of their core things. Like they're both are quite clearly based on someone that has like Asperger's, possibly like severe autism kind of thing.
ASD.
You know,
yeah.
They're definitely like highly on the spectrum. You know, like they, as this thing, they're emotionally removed to a fault, rational and analytical to a fault, prioritizing their private obsessions over human relationships, and probably both with Asperger's. But the difference between the two is that Sheldon uses everything that he does and does everything that he does in a really egotistical, brutally, like just rude kind of way. But it's like, oh, he's just like that, so that's fine. He's just allowed to be a dick. Whereas Abed's not a dick. Throughout, he has this real like wholesome nature about him.
Yeah, no. I have a thought though about the Sheldon thing. So I am a science nerd. I studied in the hallowed halls of the University of Queensland. Got my science degree, and fuck me, some of the people in my degree were like Sheldon. Like, and the ego, I think the show was terrible, but like I know people who were so similar to that in their no, that's actually and like they, I hate that they portray it that a science nerd, like he's like a theoretical astrophysicist or something. They would not know shit about biochemistry in the real world. Like, I'm just putting it out there, but he does, like, I don't know, because he's a super genius, but I do know, I have studied with people who are like that, and I think like ASD plays a role, but also just like being a white man who no one's ever told, just like, hey, can you just shut up for a minute?
Fuck up.
Like, yeah, they just need like a hard Australian, like, oi mate, just calm down. Like, because I never had any problem working with them, because I'd be like, can you just shh for like 5 minutes? Like,
you know what? Sounds like they need a good wedgie.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe the bullies are right.
Maybe
Who
the
knows?
bullies were
Maybe
right. Hey,
they're
I've never
right.
had to wear jeans.
Yeah.
I've only given them to myself. Or whenever
Yeah.
I try wearing a G-string, and then I'm like, oh, what did I? Jesus! And then
This
I
is
throw
an
them out.
awful contraption.
It's
Why was
terrible.
this invented?
But sorry, Josh, to derail. But I am
No, you're right.
saying maybe being an idiot. Well, he's not an idiot savant because it's not just one topic. But maybe being a super genius. It's hard to portray because how many super geniuses do people know? Like I don't know. But the smartest people that I do know are not that stereotyped to being so
Arrogant.
disconnected and like. But I am also like that though. Someone like sits in my spot or something, and I'm like, he's in my spot, and it's just like,
Oh yeah,
it's
and I don't so much disagree that it's not a realistic portrayal of someone in like even if it is like a more
realistic-ish.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has
some of
points to it, but yeah, it's
some
more
of the
like
jokes were great. I'm like the science jokes. I'd just be like, ah, like,
yeah, but like again, like you get those like Futurama and stuff like that had so many wonderful science jokes that just went over the heads of so many fucking people. But it's like,
Yeah.
I think there are ways to portray it that I feel like could have been done so much better because every time it just felt like it was almost like trying to pretend like it was wholesome that he was an asshole and a bit of a creep. And yeah, I just don't agree with how they presented any of the characters in that show because I
Yeah.
just feel like all of them were there to be laughed at, which is just
the
and again
the weird sex pest, whoever he is, who gets married and has children. That was concerning.
Yeah. And again, pushing that stereotype of if you just continually pester this woman who has told you no multiple times, eventually she'll relent. Like that as a stereotype in itself that was portrayed in that show is just
Not cool.
not cool. Not cool. Not specifically nerdy as that just sort of runs the gamut.
And really healthy relationships, like the girl who marries Sheldon's friend. Sheldon's got one friend. I don't know. The neighbor ends up with like his mate. And I'm like, he's a genius physicist. Like, you know, and you two just act like you hate each other the whole time. Maybe that is love though. I don't know. But like it's there's a lot of problematic stuff in there. But yeah. I never would have put Albert and Sheldon in the same category. There you go.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like I'd kind of thought little bits about it, but there's a dude who's I'll post the link in the comments because he's written like a whole fucking think piece about it, and it goes on and on and on.
He could actually be the same Tool fan that I found the other week for the other episode.
Oh my god, it's him.
I mean, this guy's blog is called Cultural Diffusion because every obsession needs an outlet. So possibly he may have written about Tool.
There is a chance.
So do you guys think that there are like there's easily defined stereotype tropes of nerds and metalheads in pop culture? Like
No, but I think we probably see that because we are nerds and metalheads. Is probably the
so
way
we see how people are
works.
identifying us as because but what I said earlier about like it's how a group views you and then you see yourself being viewed by a group. So
yeah.
maybe we're the best people to identify what we think the stereotypes are because we have that lens.
Yeah, but like I think like you look at how we were represented in like the 80s versus now. Like I mean the prime example of it is the cult classic, which should just be destroyed for all humanity. Revenge of the Nerds. Revenge of the Nerds is bad on every single level by today's standards. It is not. Yeah, it's there's like some very dark things that were seen as funny in the 80s, but again, that was like that saw us as like at its like bespeckled wearing pants up high, well actually kind of thing. Like they were all very like that. Poindexter, I guess they use that sort of umbrella term for that sort of nerd in that, but yeah, they were seen as these these lovable goofballs, but they were also like taking videos of women in the shower and like interfering with a woman while she was asleep kind of thing. Like there was some fucked up things in that thing that were like portrayed as comedy that were just like you look back and just be like, no.
Knowing what we know now, they probably went on to become CEOs of companies and now all those CEOs have been Me Too'd. So they probably were just it
probably was just the culture, unfortunately.
Like I don't know, that's a problem. Like like metalheads I find don't get ripped on as much in like pop culture as much. It's more just like the weird listens to alternative music, wears eyeliner kind of trope. Wayne's World was about metalheads.
Wayne's
and
World was a good example of it. Like,
that was a wholesome movie.
Yeah.
I feel like if anything, the metalheads in pop culture are usually the bullies. They're usually like the tough guy listening to like Motorhead in his car.
What about Freaks and Geeks?
Yeah.
Why did that
Freaks
not
and
come to
Geeks.
mind immediately? Because that's
Freaks and Geeks is so good.
Oh, it's so good. And I mean, it was like the metalheads kind of like the burnouts though.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because I was trying to think of like more like negative stereotypes, and I don't know why it's a weird one that comes to mind, but the two dudes in Little Nicky, the
Yes,
two
I love that.
metalheads in that are like on
they're brain
the
dead.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're brain dead, just sort of like clearly watched a lot of Beavis and Butthead sort of thing. But yeah,
I've actually got
weren't-
a really nice little study that talks about metalheads' intelligence.
Oh, go on.
So this is the intro from the study and then their findings, which I love. The stereotype of the heavy metal music fan or metalhead is generally not a positive one. Metalheads are seen as aggressive and angry, to name but a few of the less favorable perceived characteristics. Researchers have found that preference for heavy metal is also associated with lower interest in education and poor performance in school, and may be linked to thoughts of suicide among adolescents. Related to this, some research indicates that people who prefer this genre of music tend not to enjoy thinking. That is, fans of maybe metal music score low on the need for cognition. The need for cognition is a personality scale that measures the preference for engaging in thinking. So someone who scores high in NFC would be likely to enjoy a cognitively stimulating task like chess. But then the study went to whoop itself on the ass that metalheads actually had a really high need for cognition than other music groups studied, but also found that metalheads rated highest on the dark triad of Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. So we aren't dumb, but we kind of fucked.
Yeah, fair enough.
That could be the tagline for metalheads. We aren't dumb, but
we're
are
kind of
fucked.
fucked.
That's it.
Yeah.
You've tagged metal for all eternity. That's very, very funny. But yeah, because I was gonna say like, most of the smartest people I know listen to metal. Like, and I think I know
same.
some pretty smart people.
Well, they did find in this study that on another study that metalheads and classical music fans had really similar personality types. Like all of their personality traits are really similar, and that the genres could be broken down to be interpreted as quite similar if you get real nerdy about it.
I can agree with that.
But there is evidence that the negative stereotypes surrounding STEM, so like science, technology, engineering, and maths, actually negatively affect people studying it and deter people from entering into the field. And there is research that proves that women tend to study STEM with the aim of disproving stereotypes, because I know that was a motivator for me. But there's so much research into the nerd.
Regarding like alternative women in STEM, how much do we have to thank the hot goth chick from NCIS for inspiring women to?
Holy shit! I want to kill her. All right.
Wow.
So
really? Go on, please go on. I don't watch it. I just know that she exists.
I saw like
she was a forensic scientist, was she, or was she like a pathologist?
I actually don't. I've never watched the show. I threw the only reference I know.
So being an alternative girl, I had tattoos, I had facial piercings, I had like bright red hair or bright purple hair or something. You know, it was the early thousands and it was the early 2010s. I was, anyway, and it's like, oh, what do you study? I'm like, oh, I'm studying science. They're like, oh, you're like that girl from NCIS. And I probably, if I had $1 for every time someone said that to me, I would be so fucking rich. And so that was really annoying. I was like, is that really? Like,
so what I'm hearing is you feel like you've been stereotyped in a negative way via a portrayal in the media, as is the topic of this entire podcast.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing. I've never even seen NCIS. Like, I don't know what she does, but I'm like, great, because I wear eyeliner and I'm alternative to the norm. I'm pigeonholed with that fucking goth. I'm not a goth, clearly. I'm a punk. Fuck you. She says in her Meshuggah t-shirt. I'm somewhere between. But yeah, no, that's an interesting one. Like the nerd. Like, I do have an example in my notes that I wrote down from the sex education show. So have you guys watched Sex Ed?
Yeah, I've seen Sex
Education.
Education.
So okay, so there's a trope in there about like the alternative girl. She's so generic. I really hate saying it, but like she has like pink hair and wears heavy eyeliner and dresses alternatively and coolly, and she has a troubled home life, and she smokes cigarettes, and she loves books, and like she has a secret passion for reading, but she also like is super cool and skips class, and you know, like that kind of, it's I just feel like it's like this generic manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah, it's the Daria
alternative girl.
complex.
It's like a Daria complex, and like having aspired to be Daria for many years, like I've been as her for Halloween, like, but then like the main character falls for the alternative girl, and he's like this shy, awkward dork, and he isn't like a cool kid, but like it's a pretty well written show. It's more complex than that, but like just like the alternative girl falling for like this fucking white bread boy. I'm like, really? Like, all right. Or alternative girl makeovers, yeah, where they take off their makeup and it's like, oh, she's so pretty. Or like where they try and be normal to fit in, and then they get some motivational speech and become weird again. What about when the metalhead is shown hissing in the TV show or something? It's like yeah, and then there's the weird goth kid, and he's like, and you're like,
I don't think I've ever hissed in my life.
I just do it back at my cat, but like,
never in another person though. No.
I should
like,
try it.
I was trying to think of it, like, and I feel like, especially like horror movies, they always have like a token goth or something like that. Like they always have just kind of like, oh, we're just going to put like a goth person in it because it's a horror film and we've got to. But it's
that's
like
another stereotype that they do, like a nymphomaniac goth girl. Like she's kind of goth, but she is always having sex or something, and you're like,
well, that was the example that I had in my brain. Was the first one that comes to mind is the goth couple in the horror movie Valentine, where David Boreanaz, who played Angel in Buffy,
I thought you were going to say
him...
David Blaine. I was ready, but all right,
That'd be fantastic.
But it had him, and it had a couple of other actresses as well. But yeah, like the main character shared like a dorm with this goth chick, and like, yeah, her and her boyfriend would like just have sex like in the same room as them and not even give a shit. And then yeah, she ends up getting killed because like the killer's like strangling her to death in bed while the other girl's in the other bed because she thinks it's just her boyfriend and her having sex because she just can't on. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, sure, why not?
That checks out. Good representations of metalheads. What do you guys think of Metalocalypse?
I love Metalocalypse. I reckon it's
I
fantastic.
fucking love Metalocalypse. That's another one where they know that they're making fun of metalheads.
Yeah.
But they're laughing with us. Because
Exactly.
every metalhead who watches it is just like, fuck, this is so true.
Yeah. But I think that's the thing as well.
There is some problematic portrayal of women in it, but I think that's the
absolutely.
joke, that like some dudes who play metal see themselves, you know, like the guitar nerd meme. So it's like the fat guy with like the ponytail and like 3 hairs. And he's like, oh, she's going to tell me what a great set I played. And she's like, you have to move your amps. Like one of those memes. It's like, in reality, it's more like that. So maybe that's why it's good. But I love
what I think of Metalocalypse is it's like a view of what people that aren't into metal think metal people are. And they're just like run with that. It's just like, oh, what's the most metal thing that no one ever does? But we're just gonna assume that that's actually how it is, and then they're just gonna make a TV show out of it. That's how I feel.
William Murderface, iconic, the perfect bass player.
Murderface.
I mean, I used to have a pet rat named Toki, because it was so cute,
Amazing.
and it had brown hair like the color of Toki's, and I was like, "You're so sweet and dumb and precious."
Yeah, and I love that. Yeah, both the guitarist and the Scandinavian, like it's
yeah. And
because
then,
of course, that's 100% where they come from.
That's brutal as fuck. Oh, that's brutal, and it's just like,
does this sauce have the cilantros? Oh no! When he like has his hands in those like diamond things because like insured for like $10 billion.
Fuck, now I need to go and watch
Squiscard just
again.
always playing a guitar. That is actually true. Like everyone's got that metalhead guitarist friends, or like maybe it was like more of like earlier in my life, but they've always just got like a fucking guitar. Like they'll be like sitting around at home and they're just
And
playing.
it's not plugged
like,
in either.
Yeah, no, they're just doing finger practice, and it's just like, and there are some good songs in that show.
Yeah, Fair. Well, yeah, I think like I haven't actually seen it, but yeah, it was that film that Grant was talking about recently, the Netflix one about the metalheads.
The Metal Lords.
Yeah. Was
Yeah.
that like I can't remember if you actually spoke much about the representation of it, but do you feel it was an accurate representation?
It's obviously as dramatized like a TV show, but like I wouldn't say it's like everyone knows that like overzealous, like especially when you're a teenager, like that just like super over the top metal dude, just like trying to be metal to make other people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's definitely takes a
Yeah.
large step in the shoes of that person, and like also shows how ridiculous it is because his parents like mega rich, and he's just like
That's it, isn't it?
you have like nothing to be upset about.
Society, mum, you don't get it.
Yeah, and he's like driving around this like brand new like Dodge Charger that his dad bought because he's a plastic surgeon or something like that. But
I think, I haven't seen it. I was just like, I think that like metalheads and nerds, I like it when there's overlap in their cultural representation. I just really enjoy that. That's probably why I like Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, like, yeah, Eddie comes to mind, but I was like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone be as metal as they portray him to be. Like in like I've actually seen like the season, but I like see like all the clips of him and he's like nah and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
I haven't seen a lot of metalheads do that.
I mean, I know it's a TV show, but also like he gives some compelling speech about because they wanted to cancel their D&D session and it was his last one. So he gives a compelling speech about it, mounts the table and is like, and people like sticking his tongue out and doing metal horns. And I'm like, the only time I do that is one, if I'm really pissed, or two, if I'm at like an extreme death metal show and they're like, let me see some horns. I'm like, yes, sir, don't kill me. Like, I'm so scared. Like
please take the horns. They're all I have. They're the only horns I have.
Oh, yes, I will go into the circle pit for you.
I was just about to say, I don't think I've ever actually like seriously given the horns ever, but I know a lot of metal dudes who do. And so I was like, that is a fair stereotype to say the horns because there are a lot of like metal dudes that take the horns.
He was a very self-confident, nerdy. Well, I don't think he was a nerd. I think he was like the burnout metalhead because he was a drug dealer. So, yeah. But he was friends with the nerds. So what we're saying is Dungeons and Dragons
like playing Dungeons and Dragons with kids and he's a drug dealer. Like it's kind of a weird situation if you really think about it too deeply.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue the alternate universe thing and whatever, and brain powers is kind of weird too. But
oh yeah, absolutely. But that's the part that can't happen in real life. That's why you don't worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, but if there was a dude in your high school, no matter how hot, who mounted tables and was throwing horns and giving speeches and being like, like metal, I'd be like, Jesus, no wonder he hangs out with fucking 12-year-olds. Like, like, you know,
yeah, the 12-year-olds would find that cool, whereas like, yeah, people his age are probably like,
yeah, and I think that's kind of it. Like the kids were kind of like, yeah, all right, we'll come to the session. And all his mates were like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like people looking at us. But
fair.
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
I think all in all though, like it's getting better as well as like most representation. I think these days, like across the board in terms of any representation, it is slowly getting better. Some people taking a lot longer than others, but I feel like it's because people just aren't assuming anymore. Like I think Revenge of the Nerds is probably the perfect example. It's like they weren't. I can put money on the fact that the writers weren't nerds. The writers were just like, oh, what's a stereotype? Let's write this because it'll be funny. Like maybe they know one or two of them, but it's like these days I feel like you can tell when a person of this culture, of this belief, or of this background is involved in a show. And so I feel like now we're slowly getting to a point like Stranger Things, like you don't get to that level of Dungeons and Dragons without being at least a bit of a nerd. Like the writers in that show
someone had to know something about Dungeons and Dragons.
But D&D's sick. D&D's becoming cool.
Yeah,
because of
100%. Stranger
Things. But and like having been a scientist, having worked in research labs at universities, it's a whole mix of people. Like, I mean, having the foreign guy on, they had one token person of color on the show, who was, I think he was Indian, and he never spoke. well, never spoke to women, but I did have a PhD person doing a PhD in the same lab as me who just never spoke. And when she did speak, it was like this. Like you couldn't hear anything. And yeah, so I mean that might be one true thing. I've seen one person like that before who just never spoke. But I know all kinds of people who do PhDs, like, you know, and who are scientists, like really successful, accomplished scientists do anything and everything that's dope. Like,
but I think that's the kind of flip side of breaking down those stereotypes is it's kind of realized like anyone can do this. It doesn't have to be that stereotypical nerd. So it's like when people realize that stereotypes are just kind of silly, it's like, oh, anyone can go and do that. You don't have to look like a fucking Poindexter or the girl.
Yeah, and just because a girl wears heavy eyeliner to uni does not mean her to be the fucking chick from NCIS. I'm so oh god, oh god. But like, what is represented in popular culture does have an input. So I think us being of the alternative gives us a different insight than fucking normies, because like I don't know, like I still get stared at and shit for having tattoos. I'm sure you guys all get like the weird looks and people like getting slightly uncomfortable around you, and you're like, not even that scary, like, you know.
And that's one of the perks of being an absolute spurg is I just never realize, like, ever. I'm just completely oblivious to everything that kind of goes on around me. I'll never forget. I would have been like, I think I was like 20 or something at the time, and I was a lot heavier set, and I had like long, like metal red hair, and I was walking around Chadston with my girlfriend at the time. And after about 45 minutes, she snapped at me. She's like, how can you stand this? I'm like, stand what? And she's like, literally everybody is staring at you. Everybody. And I'm like, I literally haven't noticed.
Like, that's because I'm famous, babe.
Nah, it was just because I was just like I was like a fat dude with big red hair and a big red beard and whatever. And I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm just so oblivious to that.
Yeah, honestly, like I don't notice sometimes, but like when they like move away from you, or it's the only empty seat on the bus and they don't sit next to you, and you're like, I haven't even been using Macapto-ethanol today. I don't smell like a sewer. Why? Like, but another one that I hate, the super hot female scientist. You know, she takes off her glasses and then the guy's like, oh. And she's wearing
glasses, and then the hair just falls down as the.
And she's wearing high heels while she's walking around a lab. I'm like, absolutely not. If you're doing lab work, you're on your feet for 8 hours a fucking day. Yeah. No,
wear Crocs like a normal person.
No, you can't wear Crocs in a lab. Yeah. Jesus, no. But I do know female scientists who wear high heels. They wear comfortable shoes into work, high heels around the office into all their meetings. When they go into the lab, they change into lab-safe shoes, and then they change out of them once they're done in the lab.
I love trip hazards.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Hey, she's got an office. She can do whatever she wants. She's a professor.
100%.
But yeah, just the hot female scientist. I'm like, it's definitely a thing, but like, I feel like it's being done enough times where it's just
fair.
Just makes me real angry. Where's the super hot male scientist?
What, Mark
Probably
Ruffalo?
In a lot of movies.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like, just anyone in movies, they're all super hot now. Like, there's like no normal looking actors anymore. Like, even like you watch a movie from the 90s,
so
they just make hot people ugly now. They're like, oh, we need something that looks kind of ugly instead of like just getting like a regular person. Because it's like they make the people even ugly. It's like, oh, we'll make this person look like a normal person. But
all right, so Grant's clearly auditioned for a movie and lost out on the spot.
But we'll get like Bradley Cooper, but we'll put a fake nose on him so he doesn't look as good. It's like, what? I don't understand it. It's like,
that's like I rewatched fucking Independence Day the other day, and you know,
that's
when like
a great movie,
right? But you know when they go to Area 51 and there's the scientist with the long hair who's like the big fucking hippie and whatnot. Did you realize that that's Data from Star Trek?
No, I didn't.
It's the same actor. It's like he just looks so much different that it took me like fucking. I was like, why does that face look so familiar? And then then I go back and watch it, and I forget the actor's name, but it's Data.
Damn. Like,
yeah, gonna go and Google it now. It's the same person.
So
on that mind-blowing note, though,
yeah, like what? So what? Yeah, is this the like? how should we stereotype, or should we just not?
I mean, yeah, like I guess that could be a fair question to end it out. Is there such thing as like a good stereotype or a healthy stereotype? I feel like there's like harmless stereotypes, perhaps. Like I don't know, like saying like every metalhead has long hair. I was like, well, no, they don't, but like it doesn't hurt anyone to stereotype.
Oh, but does it hurt the bald people? Do they feel upset because they're like, I can't have hair?
I mean, well, in the metal community, when something is bad, we call it bald, and so it swings and roundabouts there. Yeah, it's to say something is bald is it's an insult in the metal community now. Apparently,
I've never.
Kids, I'm staying
I've
up with
never
the thing.
heard-
The kids in the lingo.
Is it like
this the
is it talking
TikTok?
about like a mix? Is it like that mix sounds kind of bald because they took the top off the mix or something? Or
No, I think they're referring to bald as in like old man metal, and so when they say like that's bald, it's like it's like bald metal.
can they just
for,
not
like-
spell bold? I'm so concerned about the younger generation.
No, I think
Oh
they're
my
just
god,
trying to call
look
it
at us
dad
ripping on
metal.
Zoomers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Stereotypes. Was it
Yeah.
on TikTok?
Yeah, get them. Get those Zoomers.
I don't know. Yeah, I can't
Grant.
think of a reason where it's like really like. I mean, yeah, maybe there's some sort of like deep ingrained fight or flight response. Like that triggered like, oh, this is going to protect me from this if I just assume this. But I can't think of a healthy one or like a good reason to.
Well, I looked at a lot of research on stereotyping, and all of them kind of say that stereotyping is bad. And the main reason why people research stereotypes is because they look at prejudice and like behaviors to pretty much they just want to be like, I'm acting shit to this person because I have an ingrained stereotype and I can't help it. Like that's what they're researching. Like, is this a thing? And like you can counter stereotypes in your head. It just requires that active processing, not like that that innate sort of processing process. So like if you cognitively engage, and that can be a thing. But I think as long as people cluster into social groups, there will always be stereotypes because there will always be shared features among a group. And the human brain is wired, thanks to our monkey days, to make correlations about groups. Like we have pattern recognition for a reason. And unfortunately, we just apply it to people. But you can break the cycle. That's the thing. Like,
To be fair, though, if I see an Eshe at the train station, I'm still not going to be happy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Look, there are some stereotypes that look. Let's just roll with it. I don't think Eshe is that deep of a culture where
It's a choice. It's a choice.
It's a choice. It's not the color of your skin. It's not who you are as a person.
It's whether or not you're an
engage
Eshe. Yeah.
It's not my fault you choose to speak in pig Latin and steal shoes.
The moral to this story is always wear bad shoes, or Eshes will steal them off you.
Or they'll
try not
just
to stereotype too much because it's bad, unless they're Eshes.
Unless they're Eshes. Unless they're
But,
But
athletes.
I mean, I think the reason why there is so much research into this is because we are in a time where we no longer culturally, and we try not to culturally stereotype people, and that's like a very important thing because that's racism, cultural stereotyping, and that plays a big role in racism. But
Absolutely.
because you can have just ingrained thought patterns. That's why your grandma might say some really problematic things from time to time. And and you can correct these things by actively engaging with them and thinking about it and being like, is that just me stereotyping someone, or is that real?
I guess that's it. Is like, it's not so much the problem of the assumption, it's the problem of sticking to that assumption. It's kind of like, oh, maybe it's like this. Oh no, I'm wrong. I've learned and I've grown, kind of thing. It's like you can't really help.
Honestly, as long as they're not super sexist, I'm kind of okay with the metalhead portrayals. Like,
I take a lot of pleasure in like walking into a room and people assuming a lot of things about me and me proving them wrong. I think that actually
and then you
makes
go
me very, very happy.
on a table and like screaming in people's faces.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love walking into a room and actually being shit at maths.
Letting your hair down and being like, that's right, I headbang.
Yeah.
And
No, it's just people looking at me
Because
and
that's
being
the
like,
kind of thing a metalhead would say.
Yeah.
I headbang and I worship Satan.
yeah. People like looking at me and just being like, oh, this guy looks like a piece of crap. And then I'm just kind of like, well, actually, excuse me for a second.
Well, actually, it's a
I'm
it's
a pile of crap.
It's a piece of fecal matter.
Exactly.
I mean, let us know what your thoughts are, our dear listeners, about stereotypes. Do you also get compared to that fucking chick from NCIS? Do you have any pet peeves that people compare you to? Like, oh my God, I'm sure tattooed girls will get this when Kat Von D was like a big thing, like the tattoo artist, and people being like, oh my God, Kat Von D, if you wore winged eyeliner and had tattoos, which was like every girl.
I'm totally trying to be Cleopatra the 7th, actually.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Or-
tattoos
or-
was such a thing.
Or any band that's fronted by a woman that fits into metalcore, post-hardcore, punk, pop punk, ska, anything under that alternate umbrella, just getting compared to Paramore.
Oh, yeah.
Any one of them. Doesn't matter what they sound like. I was like, oh, this kind of sounds like Paramore. No, it doesn't. I'll tell you, it sounds nothing like Paramore.
Have you heard of this band Ginger? Kind of sounds like Paramore.
It sounds like Paramore. Exactly.
What about, have you heard of Cerebral
Spirit-
Bore?
yeah.
Sounds like Paramore.
Yeah, have you heard Spirit
Oh.
Box? Sounds exactly like Paramore.
Yeah, that's the only reason we got Venom Prison on, just so we could talk
Yeah.
to them about Paramore.
Why
like-
why did we tell Ash that he sounds like Paramore?
Like
Fuck, this whole
Paramore.
time?
Oh,
Sure,
no, I've been
love that.
messaging him every day and telling him that he sounds like
Ah,
Paramore.
good.
It's all right.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad.
Your riffs
Well,
sound like shitty pop punk.
On that note, dear listeners, we're going to move in to the final beat for this week. Every week on the podcast, asking the important questions. There was some hot debate over the last one, which was, as Margy said at the start of the show, what would be the one subgenre of music you'd listen to for the rest of your life? I really enjoyed the debate across multiple platforms for that one. But this
You
week,
just enjoy the fact that it terrorized me after the
I
show
do.
for so long.
100%. I do. I really, really do. But this week we're going with this segment I've called "I Want to Be the Very Best," and we're going to look at we're going to take turns arguing over who is the best of a particular character trope. We're going to look at a whole bunch of different tropes throughout. I want to be the very best, and just argue about which one's the best. And so this week we're going with a question of who is the best vampire in popular culture. And maybe Grant, we'll start with you. Who do you want to say is the best vampire portrayal, the best vampire character in popular culture?
Got to be Blade.
Ooh,
Wasn't he a
has to
half
be.
vampire?
Yeah,
Still
he's
vampire.
a vampire enough.
Still
He's
va-
a
still a
daywalker.
vampire.
No,
he's a daywalker.
He's a daywalker. He's just a different kind of vampire. And
Yeah,
you know what? As we've seen, he can beat every other vampire, so he's the best vampire.
you definitely.
That's pretty valid.
It's
And
very
being able
very
to walk
true.
around during the day is pretty
Yeah,
sick.
exactly. He's the best vampire. It has
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I do like Castlevania, like Dracula from Castlevania, and Alucard,
pretty hot.
which is Dracula backwards, who is his son.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's a good choice. I'm very curious to see what they do with the new Blade film. Apparently, they've
Well, they
scrapped the current
stopped.
script in this.
Yeah.
They've scrapped the script and they're starting again, so it's going to be still a while off.
There's-
But
We totally watched the original one for the script.
nice, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
What
we
about you,
did.
though, Margy? Where are you going with this? Who do you think is the best
Well-
vampire portrayal?
I'm going off what I think a good vampire should be, which is sexy, ultimately flawed, sexy, someone who
Blade.
isn't
Wesley Snipes.
isn't averse to a bit of gratuitous bloodletting,
Mhm.
sexy, incredibly powerful and mystical, sexy, etc. So probably Lestat from the Anne Rice novels. He's cultured. He's an anti-hero sort of in the first book, but he's really not. He doesn't abide to sexuality. He is pansexual most beautifully. He's worldly. He's plagued by philosophical questions. He's in a band at one point. He's hot.
Yeah, we've seen Queen of the Damned.
Yeah, exactly. He's a bit of and he ends up becoming a vampire god who could fly, go into sunlight, has super control, telekinesis, all that kind of shit, and can like read people's minds and shit. So he's everything, and he's pretty sexy. A close second would be Eric from the True Blood series, just because he can get it. If that actor is listening, you can get it. At least I didn't go for William from the fucking True Blood series. Suck it. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's every 2 seconds. Suck it. Oh, you're missing out, Josh. So I take it your vampire choice isn't from True Blood.
It's got to be from Stakeland, probably.
Nah, there was no good like representation. There was no character in that. No, I had like I have a list of runners up. So I mean, one that I feel ticks every single box in Margy's category. So like sexy, mystical, sexy, wants to spill some blood, sexy. Santiago Pandemonium, Selma Hayek's character in From Dusk Till Dawn, because ticks all those boxes, absolutely.
Ticks all the boxes, absolutely.
So that'll be my second runner-up. My first runner-up ticks all of Grant's boxes in terms of powerful and the boss.
It just Blade?
It's Alucard, but Alucard from Hellsing, the anime Hellsing. He is fucking the absolute boss, and the same as Blade. He is a vampire who kills other vampires, and he's fucking
half-blood.
Another half-blood, but he's so fucking like Hellsing's one of my favorite animes. I fucking love that. He's so powerful. He's so like just cool and fun, and the storyline to it's so deep. And I fucking love it. But number one, I almost went to say Spike. I'm going to be honest. I almost went to say Spike from Buffy.
Well, he's way better than Angel.
He's 100%. Yeah, in the Buffy universe, he is the best vampire by far.
Angel is just butter on bread.
Yeah.
But the vampires aren't sexy in that universe. I'm putting it out there. When they transform, they get pig face.
Yeah,
and that's not meant to be insulting to pigs.
But
we're gonna get angry emails.
Yeah, my number one choice is pig face, but I think he's just like cool. He's just a cool vampire. I'm going with David from The Lost Boys. I'm going with fucking Kiefer Sutherland. I really enjoy The Lost Boys. I think The Lost Boys is a fucking absolute gem of a film. I think David like plays that role of like, he's kind of grungy, he's kind of a bit of a punk, and then he's evil and he's old. Like he just plays all these parts to his character so well, and then he's scary at times. But yeah, I just love him as a character. I really, really enjoy David from The Lost Boys. So I think he's going to be my number one vampire from popular culture.
I've actually never seen The Lost Boys.
That's a pretty good answer. Well, we have to rectify that.
Underrated. A very, very underrated film. It's like, it was popular in its day, and then it's just sort of like kids these days don't really watch it, but it has like a topless dude playing the saxophone. So it's clearly the best film of all time.
It falls into best films of all time.
What about What We Do in the Shadows?
Well, I almost went with What We Do in the Shadows because I was like, but that's just sort of like a piss take. It's just sort of like What We Do in the Shadows is very funny though.
Have
like,
you watched the new
what
series?
about the energy vampire?
No, Colin Robinson. Yeah.
No, I haven't seen the new series. I went and saw
it's so good. It's hilarious.
I went and saw the original at the cinema when I didn't know what it was or anything like that. It was just like my friend's just like, I've got a ticket, I'm gonna take you this thing. I was like, all right, whatever. And then 10 best. I was like, that's very funny.
Because I thought like it being Americanized, it would be bad, but I think Taika Waititi still has a pretty heavy hand in like the writing, and it's very, very funny.
Yeah,
I mean anything with Matt Berry and it's got to be good.
Well, Matt Berry is a very big part of that. All the characters are good. Guillermo's hilarious. Everything's good.
As a real side note, have you ever listened to Matt Berry's like acid jazz album?
No, I didn't know this. Like I figured he was a musician because every show he plays music in, but like I never knew he had an album. Yeah,
my friend picked him up at a show in London when she just like went to this random show and he was playing. She had no idea who he was. But yeah, he's an acid jazz performer and he's actually really fucking good. Like actually really fucking good.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
What a time to be alive.
But dear listener, we need to know from you. Every Friday on the Northside Nerds Instagram, I post the question along with some amazing Photoshop that I like to do
really
because I try. I really, really do. But we need to know, who do you think is the best vampire character? Who is the very best that no one ever was? To test them is my real test. To trade them is my cause. Pokemon.
Enslave them all.
Enslave them all. Gotta enslave them all. No, we need to know. I'm gonna post it Friday mornings. Follow at Northside Nerds on Instagram and let us know who is the best vampire in popular culture. And you can go back through all the old ones. You can go back through any question that we've asked here, because there's some wonderful questions and wonderful stories, and we like hearing from you.
Strong opinions are encouraged.
Strong opinions are encouraged. Links will be in the show notes as well to our Discord, to the Twitch channel. Me and Grant have been a little bit naughty on Twitch the last 2 weeks, but we will have a more solid sort of schedule.
We've been busy.
Hey, I'm still trying to get Discord to open on my computer and not in my browser, so I'm working on it.
We believe in you. We believe in you. But chat for listening. We love you.
We love
Be
you all.
nerdy. Don't stereotype in bad ways.
Think of sexy vampires.
Also,
Think of
yeah,
sexy vampires.
Blade's the best. Don't pay taxes.
Let's start. Don't pay taxes.
Nah, it's David. It's David. Don't pay taxes.